Thank you, Cedric. My name is Olivier Bouzreau. Welcome. As a community coordinator, I would like to say a few words first. A warm welcome to our community members. Bienvenue in Paris, especially for our friends from China. I know there are also friends from Eastern Europe and Northern Europe. We have members, as you know, from South America, from Medium America, and North America too. So it's a vast family, as we can say. And just to talk a few words about the news in France, I don't know if you followed the latest family problems that we have on the right party side. The UMP party, which was founded by Alain Juppé, has now a competition inside his own party. And they choose for name, just to illustrate the renewal of the UMP, RUMP name, which makes rump in English, which is probably not a good choice. For those of you who know, the rump is the rear part of the bird's back, le croupion en français. So choosing a project name is not often easy, as you can see, and with OW, we can help you. We can help the majority of the projects, the European projects, not only to choose the right name for international challenges they have to solve, but also during all the project life cycle. So I'm pleased to welcome our panel this morning. We'll try to avoid a bad choice together and to talk a little bit about the new open source challenges. There are always been so many challenges in open source software, as you know. And just to mention a few, cloud computing, open data, social media application, as we've heard this morning, are becoming more and more important. So I'm glad to present you our this morning experts. They together will check how open source software can establish standards, but also innovation and sovereignty, which are the three main focus for the moment, I think. So let's begin maybe with Patrick Starck. This morning you presented the Cloudwatt. It's important to know what exactly means collaborative innovation at the moment. How do you see this collaboration, collective innovation? Is it investing in R&D, maybe several R&D?
Yeah, the fact that we can share with the community some development and some innovation, it brings efficiency from a cost perspective, because we can bring knowledge together, and we will never be able to afford such a large community to work together, you know, if we were in an exclusive and proprietary type of environment. So the fact that with an open community you can share communalities is one thing, but you can share knowledge, and you can bring on that there's knowledge, innovation which could differentiate you as a company. Which is quite an interesting model in a sense, because at the end of the day, as a company, you need to differentiate yourself from your competition. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you can use some communalities with your own competitor potentially mean that there is still the last mile in terms of innovation that you need to own in a sense. But at least you can share something with a larger community, and it's not easy to integrate that in the DNA of a company, you know. So it's why I'm from the very beginning defining as part of the DNA, the Cloudwatt DNA, the fact that we need to give and take from the community. So if you don't give, you're not part of the community, and you will not stay longer in that community. You will be rejected, which is normal in a sense, you know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Marc Wetzel, you know that OSS community are now working on projects on a new rhythm, probably 24/7 rhythm. So what is your point regarding open source social innovation? Do you see more and more open source projects and innovation there?
Definitely. If we look at the kinds of collaboration that we're seeing and the kinds of projects that we see being developed, for example, we started off just with Open Social. We started off with Apache Shindig, right? And this was really a reference framework that was picked up by lots and lots of folks around the world, and started building these social platforms and this social middleware. And that led to a realization that there were gaps and things that needed to be filled. And so other projects came in along the way, like Apache Rave, which has picked that up. So we see, this ability to build on top of things that have been there. And regarding, I think, to some of the points earlier about contributing back and having standards, that really raises the level of innovation, right? If you think about having standards in place that are built on open source and having this open platform, it defines where you go off and compete, and it defines where that differentiation is. For example, in Open Social, is a component model where you want to really compete? I mean, okay, not really. What you want to compete on is the things you can do with that social data, and you want to make that social data available because that's where that secret sauce is, right? That's what's going to differentiate you as a platform in some of that. So I think there's a tremendous amount of innovation happening. I think open source and open standards actually facilitate that.
So it's interesting to have Alfonso's opinion about this, because Microsoft is a large company. They could stay with their own labs everywhere in the world working on innovation all around the cloud. Why innovate with open source projects when you have a name like Microsoft? What is the point? Is it to get more scalable solutions, to have different solutions?
Well, we think that the world is diverse, first of all. So many customers across the planet use either open source based technology and non-open source based technology. They can be from Microsoft, from other companies. So first of all, it's a great recognition of the fact that our customers are mixing technologies, and the right solutions are probably based on mixed solutions. I mean, even Microsoft doesn't have 100% Microsoft technology within the company. So it's, first of all, we started by that. Then we thought it was also good for both communities, I mean the open source world on one side and our company on the other side, to jointly work, to collaborate on some specific technologies. I'm not saying we're going to collaborate on everything. It will depend on marketing, it will depend on market demand, it will depend on customers. But we've been now working for several years on different technologies, and with, I think, successful results. I have many examples across them, whether it's in the cloud space or on the private or on-premises, if you wish, information systems. So that model is really working, and as you may know, we now have one specific team which is called Microsoft Open Technologies, which is only working with communities, with open source communities, and producing codes with those communities, and of course producing that code in an open source mode.
Okay, thank you. Ali Ataya, you're representing the users here. You're head of the e-government unit in Lebanon. So what's your interest, the main benefits for your work group and for your government to use open source software and technologies?
Thank you. E-government means three main things. First one is citizen to government, which is the relationship between the citizen and the administration. Second one is government to government, how information could be exchanged between different administrations. And the third one, the automation of administration internally. We started a strategic project for the e-government, about e-government portal, and I will say more about that tomorrow, with open source platform. For us and for, I think, all administrations, open source is an option. We have different options of solutions in the market. Open source becomes an option for any solution, for any project. I think there are two challenges for open sources as different other solutions. The first one is interoperability. Any solution in the market, including open source, should be interoperable with different other solutions. We cannot have one solution for all administrations or for all enterprises in the world. Then there is a lot of solutions. They should be interoperable. The second one, from our perspective, is the end-to-end security. Any request from the citizen coming to the administration and come back to the citizen should be completely secure, based on privacy, based on confidentiality, and based on the integrity of information for that. These 2 points are very important for us. I don't know if there are some certifications or some international organizations which can guarantee that this open source component or this open source solutions is secure and it could be interoperable with different other solutions. This is a real 2 challenges for us for the future when this project will be deployed.
Yes, thank you. And OW2 works on that, of course. Maybe one more word about your organization. Through open source software, do you try to improve the collective efficiency of each ministry, or what is exactly the point there?
We have our first experience in open source. And we are promoting with our partners. The local market is more service-oriented, and this will be an opportunity because open source is more service-oriented rather than products-oriented. We are promoting that in the software market, and then for the administrations. But we still have a clear message. We are not imposing for administrations the open source solution. This is one option with other options.
Okay, thanks. Jim Walker, do you see open source software as a catalyst for innovation now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's everything that we do as a company at Hortonworks is all about open source, right? So every line of code that we create goes back into the community. So we believe in the community as really kind of an engine of innovation. Right. If you look at the path, at least of what we represent in terms of Hadoop, it's probably one of the fastest-growing open source projects we've seen. The rate of innovation over the past year and a half, as the community has grown and as companies have started to adopt that, it's remarkable. We had version 1 of Hadoop was released in January of this year, and we'll see version 2 of Hadoop come out in January of 2013, general availability. And that really couldn't have been done as a small company such as ours. We're 150 or so people. We can build software fairly quickly. We have some great expertise, but we have this community of developers who are also innovating with us. And it's not just innovation on the forefront in terms of what's going into the software or how it works, or kind of where are the areas where we're expanding how it works. It's around testing the software as well. It's about making it enterprise grade, making it reliable, making it stable. Because an open source project in itself is only going to go so far as a group of guys in a garage. It requires a larger ecosystem of developers, and it extends well beyond just the innovation side. There's a concept in open source around a balance of innovation and stability. And early on in a software cycle, it's this rapid rate of innovation. We're really trying to make stuff great, because early adopters of software can adopt things. They can actually deal with problems. They have developers who can go ahead and fix things, and they'll innovate and take part in that community. But at some point, if the enterprise is going to adopt software, it absolutely needs to be stable. It needs to have high availability. It needs to be secure. It needs to have all the management consoles and tools that you would have around that. And what happens is the innovation moves from being kind of let's work on the core of what things are to work around the ecosystem of what an open source project is. And the case in my head is really around Hadoop. So I think innovation is absolutely key to all of this.
So one of Hortonworks' challenge at the moment would be not only to provide the industrial tools, but end-to-end service to the customers?
Yes, I mean, if that's a challenge of any company who sells software, it's end-to-end service. And quite honestly, we are. I'm sorry, I'm speaking just about Hortonworks. But in a pure open source model, where it's not the open core, it's not freemium, it's not that, we develop software and give it back to the community. Every single line of code we give is given back to everybody. We sell support and services only. So it's definitely end-to-end because we need to make sure that Hadoop is being adopted by every organization in the world, and it behooves us to make sure that they're going to be successful with it. And so we're going to partner with people like Microsoft to actually make sure that big data and Hadoop is used in every organization on the planet. And they're a fantastic partner of ours because they can provide that end-to-end support and that end-to-end visibility into an enterprise to make, really, Hadoop, in my case, successful.
Okay, thank you. Alexandre Zapolski, maybe you're working with government IT managers, with innovation managers in companies, small, medium, large companies. How do you see them regarding the choice of open source technology, and how do you help them plan new services?
So we mainly work with large organizations, and mainly in this large organization with the public administrations. The thing that we see is that in Europe, but not only in Europe, but first in Europe, things change. In France, we have a government who has adopted a new, it's not really a law, but it's what we call in French circulaire. It's a kind of law. So the Prime Minister has signed this kind of law, a circulaire, asking to all administrations to run more open source software. And why he asked that? He asked that because he has asked to his team to see what the government has done with open source from the last 10 years. And the government has saw that using open source is very cost effective. It works almost as the same as the proprietary software, and it's better for our own economy, our own jobs. Mm-hmm. And so he said, okay, so it's almost as good, it costs less, it's good for us, so let's go. We need to do more open source. That's the first time in France you have a public decision about open source at this level.
Is it based on benchmark regarding?
Yeah, this is exactly what is mentioned in this circular, in this kind of law. They said, okay, we have done a lot of benchmarks since 10 years, and now we know that that's the point. There is no more debate in France, in government, about open source costs less than proprietary software, and it's better. So let's go, we need to do more. And to do more open source software so that's an option. But today, it's almost the best option if you are a large organization. This is what he said, the Prime Minister in France, Jean-Marc Ayrault. And so he said, okay, we need to do more open source software, and for that, we need to know at which level we do open source software. So for that, we need a specific contract dedicated to open source, which is very good, because in fact, if you do a large contract, only big providers are able to answer to the large contracts. And of course, all SMEs, small and medium businesses, are not able to answer to these large contracts. So that's not good for small companies, because today the open source market is done by small and very innovative companies. And so they will build very specific contracts to have new provider growing up, which is pretty good for all the community of open source. But France has not made a specific choice in Europe. If you take the example of Italia has made in own public tender regulation the obligation to ask open source software. And if you don't find an open source software, you have to develop it. And if the cost to develop this open source software is more than to choose a proprietary software, it is only in this last case that you have the right in Italia to use proprietary software. But that's not all in Europe. For example, if you take the example of Great Britain, United Kingdom, what the government said, they said, okay, we want, you mentioned the question and the subject of interoperability, but under this issue, there are many other issues. And one of the big one is about, is the standards are official standards without any fee to use the standards? Or do you think that industrial standard with fair and reasonable price to use the standard is a standard? And the UK government has officially answered to this question. They said, we don't want to use what they call fair and reasonable standard, price standard. We will not use anymore this kind of standards.
Open standard only.
Open standard, but with no restricted fee. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is really important. And what the UK government said, we know that today the market is not exactly at the same level, especially, for example, for desktop. They mentioned LibreOffice in front of Microsoft Office. But they said, we accept that. And we need to accept that to change the market. This is what the UK government decided. And Germany also has decided many things, in North of Europe also, in federal government in the US also, and in China also. There are a lot of initiatives. I just came back, I was in China in September, and there are so many things happens there. So the world of public administration changed globally.
Thank you, Alexandre. You made the transition yourself throughout the next subject, which is OSS and standardization. So when the community is adopting a project, we can say it's becoming a standard at the moment. Ataya, you know that there is a lot of talk at the moment about data compliance, about data localization also, and sovereignty. What is your take on this?
It's about the data exchange between different administrations. We are working on interoperability framework on different levels of compliance between different administrations. The first one is the technical level, based on open standards. The first one, and the most important one, is the semantic level, based on how data should be exchanged between administrations, who is the owner of the data, and who is willing to receive this data. And the third one, the third level, is the organization level, how data should be structured and organized in order to have different information based on the initial procedures dedicated to the end user, which is the citizen.
Yes, the end user in your case is not only the...
Exactly.
Okay, so the citizens all over the world wish for more transparency. They wish also, especially on public expenses, want to know what is spent and where. Do you see those initiatives as a good measure to decrease maybe frauds or corruption?
Yes, e-government in itself is a very important mean against corruption, because when the citizen is in one side and the civil servant in the another side, then we should reduce the corruption, which is very, very important. Data compliance is very important because when a citizen starts a procedure, he has to bring some documents, and each of those documents could be also a procedure. Then he has to perform different transactions with the administration. The data exchange is very important with the vision we have that the citizen can start a transaction without any document. The administration itself, as a black box, should get those information from different internal administrations. It's a big challenge. It's a vision for maybe 5 years in the future, but it's very important for the simplification of procedures from the citizen perspective.
Yes, at this point of the debate, I think, Mark said it's interesting to see to see the impact of social networks on the society. In fact, social networks are revealing changes to the people and not only to IT users. So with the new telco capabilities, petabyte of storage on the cloud, how do you see, or what can we expect from open social media?
I think if we look at things that are happening specifically within the enterprise, for example, a lot of those are going to start to emulate many of the trends that we see in the consumer world. So if we think about in the consumer world how you're being targeted for very specific information, right? And in the consumer space, this is so they can sell you something. But if we look at some of those things in the enterprise world and say this is these same sort of technologies, these same sort of way to analyze the social information that's contained inside of the big data, inside your graph, and use that to target information that might be relevant to the things that you need to do to get done on a daily basis, that's very important, that's very powerful. And so if we can understand those patterns of how you're connected to people, of the things that you're doing, of the things that are interesting to you from a perspective of a business, of what you need to get your job done, and then apply those same technologies to deliver that information to you, then we'll see greater efficiencies. And I think that's some of the ways we're seeing the trends move. That's some of the ways we can see big data come into play of being able to target intelligently information directly to a user, typically through an activity stream or a feed or something like that.
Yes, you've mentioned coworker recognition. It's important, but looking at big data, big social data, what will be the impact on applications, for instance?
So let's take an example of, if I'm looking for information, I do a search. If I'm a CIO and I search for, an analyst, or if I am, a CFO and I look for analysts, the kind of information I might get back would be very different. In one case, I might get a set of financial reports or financial information back. In another, I might get a set of Gartner or Forrester reports back. So that's contextual based on who I am in the organization and who I'm connected to. If the people that I'm looking at or the people that I'm following have read the Forrester reports, that's probably more relevant to me than somebody, something else, a CIO who's read the financial reports or the economist, right? So that sort of targeting and awareness of what I'm doing and who I am and what I'm connected to, as well as the connections and what they're doing, that can be used in those sorts of situations. And that's very, very powerful.
Interesting, thank you. Patrick, you've mentioned Cloudwatt is about infrastructure as a service, but over the infrastructure, will you provide multi-tenant solution like such solutions?
Yeah, we aim to provide the infrastructure for this type of application and others, which means that, of course, we need to be secure, you need to be flexible, you need to be able to scale up and out without any constraint to the application layer. You just need to provide the right API, and it's why through standardization it's absolutely key, because when you develop that level at that layer, you need to understand how you could leverage the infrastructure you're running on, in order to get better efficiency from an application standpoint. Because you're absolutely right, to deliver the right information to the right people at the right time, you need to have everything working well together.
Alfonso, maybe one word on Windows Azure as a public cloud. You have also solution which can be hybrid cloud or private cloud. When is it only security issues that would be that will choose the right place for the cursor?
Well, I think it's a complex decision-making process. Before we move on, I want to answer some of the things that Alexandre mentioned, because that seems like a 10-year-old debate. I mean, the fact that you say on the one hand, you should be proprietary, you should be open source. This is bad, and this is good. That thing has completely changed. I mean, the world has completely changed. Alexandre took lots of examples of things where administrations across Europe went to open source by imposing it. The fact that they go open source is not good or bad. I think it's okay. It depends on many factors. I have lots of examples of Iceland, Germany, Spain, France as well, administrations. They have switched back from open source to some other systems. And I'm not saying it's good either. It depends upon many, many factors. And as you mentioned, there are lots of benchmarks, some showing good on one side and bad on the other side. So I don't think that's the debate. I think the debate is about standards. It's about interoperability. I'm absolutely with you. It's all about giving choice to customers. What customers want is not to go one way. What they want to be is be able to go back and change and put pressure on the vendors so they can switch back anytime they want for any reason they have. That reason might be financial. That reason might be because the strategic, the technology strategy has changed. So that depends on the customer. So you were coming back to your question about what kind of cloud should I go for. I think it depends also on that. On some specific cases, you will be willing to own your data for any reason. That might be because of legal aspects. Mm-hmm. They could be because of financial aspects. They can be because you don't trust people. You don't have enough guarantee on your from your vendors on the fact that they will really take care of your data. Not necessarily meaning that you will do better, but at least that's your decision. So the debate between private cloud and public cloud is also about interoperability. Because the good way for you to have a solution which will match all your constraints will be to have the choice of moving your applications, your data, from your private cloud, even if it's hosted or not, but it's your private cloud, and move that to another public cloud, because in some specific cases you will be earning money or whatever. So that interoperability debate is also very important in that dimension. Sorry for my very long response, but I think that's really the point, interoperability.
Yes. So the conclusion for maybe Patrick Starck would be becoming a provider of service provider. In fact, you have to have both, or even the three solution. In fact,
exactly. We don't need to be dogmatism. You see? We need very pragmatic. You have a problem to fix. You need to bring value to your customers. So then the question is how to bring the highest value for money. You know? So of course, there is diversity from a technology standpoint, there is diversity from a culture standpoint. So what is important is the fact that you can get all these pieces from the puzzle work together. So the interoperability, the standard are there to be, let's say, to be sure that at the end you get the best and the best value for the money you're investing, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm personally convinced that in our case, of course, on our environment, we will have solution coming from different suppliers. The choice we have made, and I explained earlier, was to run our plant, in a sense. To run our plant, we made some choice, but from an end user standpoint, we will have on our platform multiple environment, and the user, the customer, will pick up the one he thinks he can get the best value for. You know?
Yes. Yeah. So we know sovereignty is important because we had 2 projects, sovereign cloud in France now, or at least 2. At the moment, so and sovereignty relies on standards to avoid the vendors lock-in, but it isn't innovation always challenging this quest. In fact, maybe Mark would say something about that. Innovation is and standards. It's a chase. In fact, innovation is always in front.
So I think that you can have standards and open source and innovation all work well together. One of the things that we did specifically with Open Social is we changed the model of how the standards developed to follow more of an open source model. And it was done specifically for fostering that innovation. And we try to, when somebody wants to propose something to the standard and change the standard, we typically require a prototype, and we encourage that prototype to be done in one of the open source projects that I mentioned. And the reason we do that is so that you can demonstrate that what you're trying to do and change the standard can in fact be done, and done in a practical way, and it's available at the time it goes into the standard in open source. And I think we've seen a lot of innovation, and we try to have this notion of things that incubate in the spec and things that incubate in open source, so that we have the right to change them, and we know they work by the time they're standardized. So I think I don't think that standardization slows down innovation. And in fact, I think it can work the other way. I think you can innovate and drive creative things. We did in Open Social this notion of bringing applications, those social business applications, directly into the stream and being able to launch those in context so that you don't have to jump out to these different platforms. And that was all done and working prior to the standard, prior to officially standardizing it. So we innovated around this idea of being able to have embedded experiences in the stream, in content, receive them in email, open up these applications. We did all of that innovation. We proved it out, and then we said, okay, now we understand how the APIs work. Now we understand the interaction model. Now it's time to lock it down, and that's when we standardized it. So I think innovation and standardization can go hand in hand, and at a very fast pace.
Thank you. Jim, maybe you also see your customers, organization, public and private organization, in this rush for change, rapid change, agility. How do you help them transform themselves?
Yeah, I haven't seen a rate of change in terms of enterprise IT like this in my career, my 20-year career. Everybody's kind of scrambling to incorporate, say, big data into their organization today, and everybody's struggling with it. The way that we help organizations is really by helping them start small. Get your win under your belt and then move forward. That's really the best advice that we have for anybody that we work with. Anytime you try to boil the ocean and change everything at once, it's just not going to work, right? So, that's it's the age-old question. How do I incorporate this great technology and have it affect every part of my organization? And really, quite honestly, I think it's an organic growth is what's happening, especially with Hadoop and big data. We have customers like there's a company in the States called Newstar, and Hadoop and big data is being led out of the CIO's office or the CTO's office. And what we're seeing is small groups of very intelligent, technical people lead up kind of projects. And it's a group of maybe 5 guys, and they're going out and seeing how it might affect an entire organization. And it's not our job to really help them more than it is to enable them so that the technology is going to work within their organization, and that's really what we're all about. They go out and they find the projects, they create a platform for the rest of the organization to look at. They go on a roadshow, they go to different business units within an organization and say, this is what the technology can do, this is what we've done already. Now you have to create a business case on top of this to actually make it go out and happen. So that's really kind of the approach that we've seen so far in terms of adoption of these new technologies.
Yes, thank you. Ali, did you already identify best practices in organization facing such a mixed situation like you said?
Let me maybe talk about compliance. Mm-hmm. Because open source market is too open maybe, which is good, but how we can ensure this open source component or this open source product is compliant with some reference, as maybe, I don't know, let's say for application servers, some criteria to say this is an application server or not. Who can ensure for the customer as administration or any other enterprise, this component is compliant with this reference. I think this is not there now. We have some information and some standard information about maybe, let's say, the infrastructure component as databases or operating systems or application servers or web servers. But more components as, I don't know, CRM, ERP, on something of this kind of component, I think it's important to introduce the compliance of these components or products to have some, I don't know, certification, tampon qui dit, who says this is a good product based on some reference to be defined.
So do you invite the OW2 community to play this role, for instance?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for the message. So what if today's open source software challenges become tomorrow's opportunity? Do you see new things evolving at this point? Who wants to explain or share his vision about the change during the next coming year? Patrick, yes?
You know, it's always difficult to predict. In our industry, there is change every day, change in usages, the fact that technology is there, but you need to find a way to use that technology to create a differentiation, to create value. So I'm convinced that there is some area and layers where the open source will be the winner from a technology standpoint. As soon as there is consumerization, a high level of consumerization, I'm convinced that an open source approach for that specific, layer on the market will win at the end. Why? Because as we discussed before, you share the research, you share the development, you share the testing, you share the maintenance, you share the integration, and by sharing all these elements, basically, you can get the best.
You create trust, in fact, for the
exactly.
customers. Alfonso.
Yeah, so we have a totally complementary, so not that I'm disagreeing, not at all, approach to that. The example in our case is all the open source software that we are putting on top of Windows Azure. As you may know, Windows Azure is our public cloud offering, and as you may imagine, this is not a scoop. Everything is Windows-based inside, it's Microsoft-based. However, we are providing the market with open source and pure open source services. So you can create your website, and on top of that website, you can put Joomla, you can put Drupal, you can use PHP technology, and you create your website with that open source technology and that service being provided to you by Microsoft. You can also do that at the infrastructure as a service level. You can create Linux machines, so you can have SUSE, OpenSUSE, Ubuntu, and CentOS. These are the four we have. And also, you can go beyond that because you can take your own Linux distribution and upload it to Windows Azure and run it in there. Because in that case, you would be trusting Microsoft for the services which is delivered, but you want to use your own open source on top of that. So in our case, we are using open source and therefore promoting it on top of our platform as a way for open source to take advantage from that thing. So I think the two approaches, the one that Patrick just explained on ours, are two different ways to get there and to benefit from open source.
Okay, Alexandre first.
Quite honestly, I feel the days of closed proprietary software are over. It's done. It's that game's gone. We're not going to see that anymore. And I'm sorry, here's Microsoft nodding their head next to us. It doesn't make sense. I read a quote from Google. It was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. They said that they are open where they create a community, but closed where they make money. And it's a great quote, right? Because it's so true in terms of how companies go to market today. Look at what Microsoft has done with TechNet. I give a webinar to the TechNet community, and I have instantly a community of 5 million developers that are listening to what I have to say. That's an amazing multiplier for a business. right? So from an open source point of view, I think open source really becomes a standard of everything to be built on top of, mostly because our community has closed. The world has shrunk. And there's no way to stop that from happening because the power of the liberty, it's democracy, it's all the beauty of open source that it was all started on in the first place, overtakes the larger aspects of things. And I think that the quote to me, I think it's beautiful. It's, you know, you're open where it creates multipliers and you're closed where you make money.
Okay, before we take your questions, one word from Alexandre.
Yeah, according to me, there is two big ways about big challenges for open source. The first one is, contrary to some of the people who would like to say, it's not a question of to be dogmatic or not. The question of open source and to be able to handle technologies is a question of strategy. And I think we are not at the end of the story, we just start the story. I remember 10 years ago, Microsoft said, okay, that's no more a question, it will not happen, it will stay at the poor level and so on. So, and now they said, okay, we live in a complex world, it's an old question, and don't try to debate and don't try to discuss about that. And I'm sorry, Alfonso, the debate is just begun because now we have figures, we have facts, we have stories, and I think decision makers can take their own decision without the support of all the lobby that big firms as yours are able to provide. So that's not only a question about the open source, but that's also a question about the way decision makers take the issues of technology in their hands. So that's one of the big challenges for us, I think. We have to be clear, we have to promote, we have still to be clear, still to promote, and to work on that. The second direction is more about, I think we have a big issue to address with open source is the way we will be able to bring in the same community people from China, for example. You know, there are so huge market there, but also an open source market and an open source community or some open source communities. But the main problem that we have is in China, people speak Chinese, they write in Chinese, they don't write in English, and as you know, they have their own internet. And so they have their own open source communities. For example, in Europe, in the US, we know all about Apache. But in China, no communities work on Apache. They have their own kind of Apache community. And one of our big issue, is to be able to join the Western community and the Eastern community. And that's why I think that it's the job of OW2 is so important. That's why I thought that we had to come back in this community, because I think that it's one of the rare places where the Western open source world and the Eastern open source world is able to join and to discuss. And we have to open these two worlds and to make them stronger in working together. And that's one of our big issues today, I think.
Just a quick one before we finish. So first of all, the debate has started a long time ago and will continue. You and I debate enough, we know that. And on the other points you mentioned, yes, we agree. I mean, it's all about dialogue. I talked about choice, and you will not have choice and interoperability without dialogue. So it's all about dialogue. That dialogue already exists. There's nothing we may have to improve it, but it's already there between East, West, and between open source and non-open source.
The scale is changing very fast also. We need worldwide solution, we need this interoperability that we've talked about, and you probably have questions about worldwide issues. Yes, I'm arriving. Please state your name and organization.
Okay, hi everybody. Je suis Emmanuel de la Gardette. I'm working for ZTE Corporation R&D, so I'm a big Chinese actor. So my question is about the cloud computing as an example for the open source. And my question is regarding European market, which is extremely fragmented in terms of number of countries, size of individual market. My question is, do you think, maybe Mr. Starck or Mr. Castro, that we can reach enough rapidly significant size to be profitable? Because, you know, if we are comparing the cloud computing in Europe and in US they can play on the volume. Amazon, Google, even Microsoft is a huge installation. In France, we need, or in Germany, in Belgium and stuff like that, we start with limited volume. So my question is, do you think that open source is not the only solutions to be profitable?
In our case, what I can say, it's back to my presentation. You know, the aim, if you want to win in that game, the critical mass is at Europe level. As a matter of fact, you know, if you look at the French market or the German market or the Italian market, we will end up to lose again that battle. Back to my presentation, if you remember, we have been through 5 cycles. If you look at this 5th cycle, you don't have any European company who emerged and was part of the game. You know, I remind you, the mini computer was the winner, were the Hewlett-Packard, the digital equipment, the Sun Microsystem, the mainframe was IBM. If you look at the microcomputing in Europe, we had a lot of names. None of them made it. So, as a matter of fact, you need to start from a market. We are a French company, so we start with the French market, but we should look as soon as possible to the European market at least. Otherwise, the game will be over very soon, you know. But what is important, it's not because Amazon Web Service has opened already a few years ago that market that the game is over. If we don't play at the European level, we're out of the business. You know?
We have a question from our OW2 president.
Thank you. So I have got a question to ask Alexandre. Okay. So this, your Prime Minister wrote letters to ask all the government administrators pay attention to the open source consideration. So we need to have more job to persuade my Premier Minister. That should be more tough. But I actually a little bit wonder. So from your government's the officers, administrators, they're using the open source. Just now you mentioned a lot of advantage like this. Won't pay too much license fees and create more jobs or areas such those kind of good things. Do they think that use the open source really reliable, or those security, or those kind of problem? What do they think? And I'm really interested, how do you persuade them, let them to really believe open source is really usable? And just now in your speech, looks like you're quite familiar with the Chinese society and the environment. So I really like to listen to your what kind of recommendation. Thank you.
So, so it's a big issue to be able to convince and to brought open source to the government and to make them convinced that the right solution and so on. The things is that so they have started 10 years ago, and because they have started 10 years ago, now they know that it's a good solution for almost every level of the IT system. For example, I remember that 10 years ago, when we spoke about migration from Oracle to an open source database, it was, you know, the big CIO said, okay, Alex, I'm sure that you are right, but you know, we are the finance ministry. We do very important things. If our IT system doesn't work anymore, we will not have any more taxes for France. And you know, with our debt, the question to have the taxes is something really important for our country. And so they said, okay, we will never go out Oracle. And what I can say today is all administration work on plan to migrate from Oracle to PostgreSQL. So they work on that. That's really the present time. And so one of the questions is, as you mentioned, is to be able to assure them that in terms of security, you will find the same level of insurance, and that's even better if you use open source than to use proprietary to use proprietary software on these points. That they can be confident in a market, which is something really important. I think that you don't have a market if you have only customers or potential customers. You have also to have big providers. And this is one point for China, I think it's important. I don't think that you have red flag Linux. I know very well them. I met their CEO many times. Last time we had a tea together, which is something very important in Chinese, to have a tea and to share a meal. And so it's almost the same size as Linagora. So that's not enough big to be able to convince all the Chinese administration to support them and to help them in their migration and so on. So I have only suggestion to make to you, but what I think is, because you will decide by yourself, but according to me, you have lunch in China, I think 10 cloud center with IT providers, with universities and so on. You have done 10 clusters dedicated to clouds. And I think that you should launch a big initiative in open source with a big university in Beijing or and maybe also in Shanghai, and asking to a big providers and with some SMBs to work together and to develop their own skills, and also to come here in Europe, in the US, and to bench what the government have done, and to have all this benchmark in their hands and try to convince the CIO from China that they can run open source software very easily and it works perfectly. You know.
Thank you, Alex. I'm sorry, the time is running. It's almost noon. We have to conclude now. Maybe this is the next challenge, and we have to think about this for the coming year. Education in open source and vulgarization, evangelization is one of our mission at the moment. Thank you for the panel. We can applaud the 6 members here. Thanks a lot.